All right, grab your coffee, or let's be real, go ahead and reheat it for the second time this morning because today on Chaos and Caffeine, we've got a guest who gets it. Like, really gets it. You think your house is wild? Try stepping into the Burgoon household, where ADHD isn't just a diagnosis, it's practically the family crest. Jim Burgoon isn't just a leadership coach, though, yes, he also happens to help people become powerhouse leaders. He's a former behavioral specialist in the school system, working with special needs students, and a seasoned ADHD dad navigating the beautiful, chaotic, sometimes hurricane force winds of raising not one, but two kids with ADHD. Oh, and just to keep things interesting, he and his wife both have a little ADHD also. Yeah, if you thought your mornings were hectic, just imagine that breakfast routine. So today, we're diving into what it's really like to parent in an ADHD house, how to lead when executive function is constantly playing hide and seek, and why, despite the madness, Jim wouldn't have it any other way. Buckle up, parents, because this one's gonna be a ride. Jim, welcome to Chaos and Caffeine.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being invited.
Thank you. I am excited to have you on. I rarely get to speak to ADHD dads parenting ADHD little, so I'm very excited.
So I am too, which is a surprise to me because there's a lot of people out there, both dads with ADHD, like I have gifted ADHD, and I have two daughters, who both have some level of ADHD as well.
Very nice. And do you mind to share your journey to finding out that you have ADHD?
So I think I've always known, kind of thing. So when I was a kid, I was a terror. Oh my gosh, I was a terror. But like, um, yeah. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I was born in 78, and so I went through the system, and somewhere around, I don't know, fifth, sixth grade, maybe sooner, second, third grade. I'm not sure, but they designated me gifted. So they're like, "Hey, congratulations, you're gifted." Okay, great. That's just, had all those fun things that come along with giftedness.
Yeah.
And so going through life, dealing with that, I had a parent, my dad left. I didn't have really a lot of support. My mom wasn't somebody who liked doctors, didn't do anything. So we never actually went to get the diagnosis of, the ADHD or anything like that. And I knew something was up because I was the kid that was like I remember clearly in fourth grade. I would be so bored that I'd randomly get up and start hugging the teacher in the middle of the lesson. So it's like, and and we can get in a little bit different part of this story, but like I was also the kid who was always in trouble, always told that I was bad kid, always told that, I'll never amount to much. All that stuff was wrapped in there. Come to find out, like I've always had this thought. So fast forward, within the last 2 3 years, I said, you know what? I started seeing a therapist because I do have complex PTSD, as well as the giftedness. And for all your listeners who may or may not know the context, giftedness doesn't just mean you're smart. There are a whole lot of other things that go with it. And and I said, and I started talking to my therapist. I said, this, and this has been a course through my life, and I think that's not what is within encapsulated within the giftedness. He says, you're right. You have you're a, what do you call me? He said, you're a high masking ADHD person. And I was
Mm.
like, well, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, so fast forward, I've only been having that conversation, diagnosis type stuff in the last 2 to 3 years, and I'm about to be 47.
Mm. I probably knew before then, but I for sure have been diagnosed since I was 36, so that's only 4 years. And it feels like I'm grateful to know because then there's so much stuff, but it was it's like, man, I would think I would have benefited greatly if we had figured out around our children's age, so then we wouldn't have internalized, oh, I'm a bad kid, but it's really not you're
Right.
a bad kid, you have ADHD.
Right. And I think with my mom, my mom passed from cancer about a year ago, and like there was never the support I needed ever. And it was always like I had to figure out how to emotionally regulate. My mother was incredibly emotionally dysregulated most of her life. She had some undiagnosed mental illness. We know it. But like I had to, growing up, I had to figure out how to emotionally regulate myself. I had to figure out how to create systems myself. And I'm still struggle with that. Like all the stuff, all the signs and symptoms were there with zero support. And so it was basically me trying to learn how to be me and not like burn out and not die and not all these things. So needless to say, it was definitely a fun fun adventure. So
I am so sorry to hear about your mom.
yeah.
And I don't want to skip over the fact that you said that giftedness is not just being smart. Do you mind to break down the other components that are in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So giftedness really, is part of the ADHD autism. Like if you look at the Venn diagram of that, which is amazing. Now, the thoughts always come in is that, oh, you're gifted, so you have a high IQ. Well, that's only part of it because giftedness is also neurodivergent. So we don't think in terms of the same way as maybe some traditional people think. We're highly susceptible, like to depression, highly susceptible to putting all of our identity in what we do and
Mhm.
trying to be that results driven, constantly trying to fight through the oh my gosh, I am super like curious with the world, and then people get really annoyed with me because I'm so curious.
Mm.
And when you grow up, and especially as a gifted kid, you grow up, excelling. Like I fell asleep most of my classes, and I was like top of my school. Like I
Yeah.
was one of the top two or three in my entire school, and I slept through most of it. But you work so hard, and you get your identity through, oh look, I'm smart, yay. And then you find out that you wind up burning out. So as an adult, you're a completely burnt out adult trying to pick up the pieces of an identity that you surrounded by your
Mhm.
schoolwork, by your work, and all this stuff. And you're like, it is like the level of like even high functioning depression that goes with it is intense sometimes because you're trying to figure all of this out, and people will relegate you to say, "Oh, you're just smart." No, it's not just that I'm smart. Like even the way I think is not in the same patterns as a normal, like if you would say like a normal neurotypical person. Like I think outside the box and I make connections that are just like wild sometimes, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting because you're sitting there fighting through this, trying to make sense of things, and then you're put in a community and people who don't actually think on the level you think or even communicate with you the level you want to communicate. And so you're told all the time, shut up, sit down, and don't talk until you're spoken to. Go do your thing, leave us alone. And so it's a very lonely existence growing up. I didn't really have a lot of friends. It was like, thinking back, I'm sitting there like, man, I was like, my friend group was like literally, how do I put this? Like, I was only a friend when people needed a friend and nobody else was around.
Mhm.
And it was like, and I couldn't help that and nobody, there was never a time somebody sat down and helped me understand what I was dealing with and the massiveness of the emotional stuff all over the place and, trying to make sense of how I was feeling and what I was doing. And then you throw in like ADHD into that mix. And now like you're all over the place. I'm disorganized. I'm just like it was like a hot mess and trying to figure that out on my own was definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Ooh, something that you said in there really resonated that you were only a friend when somebody needed a friend. And I'm thinking about
Hmm.
that. My kid is recently medicated, so that is helping with the impulsivity and hyperactivity. But those two things have limited him in friendships because he is so physically impulsive. And so I'm thinking about it,
Right.
when you said that, I was like, man, that kind of seems like him because he's amazing at video games, as most neurodivergent kids are. And so it's like they're always calling him to play video games, but he doesn't get invited to many birthday parties or things like that. So that hit home for me.
Yeah, it's a challenge because, number one, I heard it somewhere. Where was it? I forget where I was listening or somebody, and they said, we people who are in the neurodivergence get this really kind of bad rap about being socially awkward. And the guy was talking about it's not that it's socially awkward, it's socially accurate.
Mm.
Like I was blown away at that because, and there's a lot of truth to it because like when I go into a social situation, now again, very high masking, so I've learned a trick or two over the years, but like I see everybody in there and I know like within minutes who I need to talk to, who I don't need to talk to, people that I should really be wary of, like the red flags are all over like within minutes.
Mm.
And then that you see all of this stuff, and this is, I think, even with your son, the challenges of some of this. You see all of this stuff, and you want to do something about it, and then you find that you also fight with this other need, this other incredible deep need of wanting to be liked.
Yeah.
So, and you're living in this tension of, man, I see all of these flags, all these challenges that I want to navigate, deal with, and actually be deep friends with, but then I'm like, man, that people pleasing need to be liked and growing up, and I still say I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I do still do have some of those tendencies, is like I'm like, well, I want to be liked because rejection sensitivity is hard.
Yeah.
And when you live in that, it's very, very hard. So there's a lot of times when I'm invited to places, I have to mute myself incredibly
Yeah.
what I think people can tolerate of me.
Yeah. That resonates so deeply with me. For 36 years, I thought that no filter thing
Mhm.
was just me. And then I found out that that was actually ADHD. So I find myself, and maybe that's a form of masking, but I find myself, okay, don't talk over these people. And it takes me out of the present because I can't really hear what they're saying because I'm just focused on,
Right.
okay, don't talk over them.
Right. And then in my head, I'm sitting there like, get to the point. Okay, get to the point. Like you're telling me too many stories and I don't want to remember any of this.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you're trying to tell me and then let's go from there. Like I've been married for 25 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
my wife is also has a little bit of ADHD in there, and she'll sit there and she's a high detailed individual, so she'll start telling me all the details before she tells me the thing, and I'm like, no, no, I will get lost in details. Do not give that. Just tell me the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I get it. It's definitely a high masking thing because you spend so much time. Again, it's that tension of, okay, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be like, I don't want to be hurting people's feelings and I want to be liked. But if I start over talking or being part of the conversation, then I may not be able to stop myself. And if I can't stop myself, then nobody will like me and then I won't be invited back. Then you know where that goes. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The doom spiral.
that doom spiral. Yes, absolutely.
So I am curious, two neurodivergent people raising two neurodivergent children. Tell me what that's like.
If you can bottle chaos sometimes, man, that would probably be what it is. Um, it's funny because like I'll tell you, like our house has never been clean. Like it's been like you go into some of these people's houses and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then you come in my house and it looks like somebody threw a bomb some days and you're like, and then you just don't have the energy and then you get all the organized piles everywhere. Like I'm terrible for organized piles. Like I have piles and I moved my piles to totes. So now I have organized totes, which God knows what's in that tote. Um, my daughter, like she's got complex ADHD, so a little mix of inattentive and hyperactivity. And so like she cleaned her room and then like we was like, okay, so you're gonna start using this basket. We come in, baskets all over the floor. It looked like she's never cleaned her room in 10 years. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh. So, it's trying to like navigate the feelings and the challenges of the expectations of what is a good home. Like you have to define that. Like what is a good home really?
Yeah,
And if it's like this perfectly organized Donna Reed house, then good luck. That ain't never happening here.
yeah,
So, so we have to really constantly be like, okay, this is okay. Like we have to fight our own expectations and the expectations of others and what we superimpose on ourselves. And so there's that, and then there's the constant trying to get everybody to do something, and then there's days where we're just like we can't do anything, and you're like, man, um, there. My one daughter's 19 and my other's 13 now. We had, through all of this, the other 19-year-old's ready to get out. She's like, I'm gonna have my house completely clean. She's probably the least ADHD of all of us, and she doesn't get it. Like she doesn't totally get it. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like leave, go do your thing. Like I'm super supportive.
yeah,
But I laugh because I'm sitting here a lot of times we have this picture. where we have the perfect ideal image of what we want, how we want it to be. But the problem with that image is we never actually recognize the challenges we face and the likelihood of getting that image. We always want the image, but we don't look at the challenge. And what we try to do here is like, okay, let's look at the challenge. Now, our challenge is not our identity. Like, I have ADHD. I am not ADHD.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, you know? Um, so we have to make sure we look at the differences between that because we all have an ideal. Like, I would love the house to be completely clean. And part of me thinks, well, once the kids are out, maybe it'll stay clean.
Yeah.
If I clean it once and never come home to it, it'll stay clean. But we oftentimes will fight through that. This is the ideal expectation we have, but we also have to recognize we do have these challenges that is going to probably keep us from that ideal. So maybe we need to lower the ideal. So instead of like we started doing things like instead of having the perfect house, we wanted to have the lived in home, place where it's like stuff like that. And it sounds simple or simplistic, but it makes a big difference on your mental health when you redefine things in a way that acknowledges what you're dealing with.
Yes, so much yes. I'm aggressively nodding for the listeners who cannot see me. I think that when you were talking about that, recognizing my ADHD traits is this is wild, but hopefully somebody out there can relate. The only thing that really helped me to do that was to start a meditation practice, which
Hmm.
is insane because that first like 2 minutes of ever trying to meditate, I was like, I can't do this. There's no way. But after I did not quit and stuck with it, I can see my mind working in the ways that it's always worked, but it's new to me. I guess recognizing it
Right.
is new to me. So I've been able to shift to the lived in home. This is fine. This is our normal. Everything's fine. But I was raised by a dad who has ADHD and the OCD component.
Oh, fun.
Yes, those parts of me fight. Part of me who's like, everything has a place. And then the woman, the mom who has a 9-year-old son, like we have to meet in the middle. And I found that meditation really helps me see that and do that.
My wife too. My wife lives and dies by meditation, you know, and I do not. I meditate in a different way, but my wife goes into the whole breathing. She right now she's learning somatic breathing and stuff, and I'm like, that's cool, honey.
Yeah,
And so I don't do that. Um, you know, even with the thoughts of the OCD, like OCD does OCD things because they're trying to close open loops in their brain.
yeah,
And then with the ADHD, we don't, it's not a question of us trying to close open loops. A lot of times it's us trying to wrestle the whirlwind of our brains and making sense of what is like seems to be senseless. And and obviously there's people that have different various levels of this stuff, but all in all, we have to acknowledge a few things. Number one, that we're good enough, we're okay as we are, you know. I think you said it was really important. You said I can't do this, and then I'm actually doing it. There's an acknowledgement of there's nothing that an ADHD person can't do if they're not hyper focused enough to do it. Like we figure it out.
true.
But it comes back to this whole thing is what feels impossible becomes possible with the right routines. So for one of the superpowers that we have is that hyper focus. One of the challenges we have is we lack routine. So if we can get a good routine in, what feels overwhelming becomes very doable.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is understanding that all of this with ADHD, neurodivergence, and all this really is rooted in a lot of emotional dysregulation. And so with the breathing and the stuff that you do and the meditation, it's your way, your coping skills of how to regulate an emotional system that is completely out of whack almost all the time and overstimulated. So it's like overstimulated. Let's not be overstimulated and let's do the thing.
Yeah.
So we do the thing and then we feel better for a while and then we got to do the thing again. So
So I help parents with the first 11 steps after their kid's diagnosis. And two things you said in there are in the top four: routine and emotional regulation. And parents are like, what does a routine have to do with ADHD? And I'm like, so much.
Oh my
So
gosh,
much of
everything. Like
everything.
everything.
Like if you're dealing with transition meltdowns, routine. If you're having trouble getting out the door in the morning, routine. If bedtime is a nightmare, routine. For us, it's homework. And a little bit still to this day, even though we've had the routine for 4+ years, but routine. It makes it so much easier. But it's hard for me to teach emotional regulation when I tend to be emotionally dysregulated. But I'm still working on that because it's very important.
Yeah, it could be the challenge, but I think the keys to teaching it is really, somebody who does try to emotionally regulate. And then my wife, again, she's much deeper into this because she does suffer from some other mental health issues with it. But like one of the things we talk about is like all I have to do, like we think we have to be completely, have it totally together and healed in order to share it, and we don't. We just have to be one step ahead of the people that we're teaching.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I'm dealing with stuff that I'm like, well, I'm not mastered this, what I tell people in my coaching, I go, hey, these are the steps or these are the coping that I use, and I've seen great things happen. So let me teach you these steps or these coping mechanisms. Try them out, and if not, we'll find different ones. So I shroud it into language like that
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that I both acknowledge I'm not a master here yet,
Mm.
but I've got some great results and I've gotten some steps ahead. So let me show you what I've had.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about your coaching, but first, I need to know about your time working in the schools, and I really want you to tell me what we as ADHD parents are getting wrong.
Oh, that's so funny. What do we ADHD parents are getting wrong? Oh my gosh. So I worked in the school system. I have been out of the school system last couple of years. My time was done. Lots of prayer went into that. And I was like, you know what? Felt I was done. But while I was in the school system for over 10, 11 years, I think it was, I was a behavioral specialist on the high school level. On the middle and elementary side of it, I worked with special needs, whether it be, not just ADHD kids, but like autistics, Down syndrome, dyslexic. I worked with them for a number of years. And then ended up being in high school as a behavioral specialist as well as a dean. So I was also over the behavior side of it, of the consequences as well. Um, so if we're going to focus strictly on ADHD, a lot of times when I was in those IEP meetings and we were writing the IEP for the ADHD student, and that's a whole other conversation because I think a lot of those IEPs are not as helpful as we want them to believe they are, but I digress. Um, One of the biggest surprises I seriously, like every single parent that I talked to had was like when I told them three things. And it was like number one, use visuals. I can't begin to tell you how many parents have no idea that they had to use visuals to help their kid succeed. Like that's like
Yeah.
ADHD 101. Like that's like the first thing you should
Hmm.
learn is visuals. Like we think in pictures. Like it's great to remember a
Yeah.
picture. It's hard to remember words. Like like even in our house, the running joke is like if you want me to buy something from the store, text it to me because if I can't see it and read it, you ain't getting it. Like that's now my kids are
Yeah.
all like they just text it to me. They don't even ask me anymore. They just send me a text. And so like but the amount of but the level of it was blew me away that parents just don't know this and their kids are like here high school kids, high
Yeah.
school. And
Yeah.
so and this is going to lead into what I think the parents get wrong. So number two was color schemes. Like you would help your student out, your child out if you color code things because color coding makes it categorize in our brain so much easier. Like I know that yellow does this. Like we do this with my daughter's book bag. Like she's math is yellow. She knows math goes in the yellow
Yeah.
folder. This is only for math, and each subject has a color. Stuff like that. And the last thing I would tell them is chunking instructions. Like if you're telling your kid to clean their room, go to the shower, do this, I said the first thing that you said was the only thing they're going to remember if it wasn't the last thing you said. And then you're mad at them. You're trying to punish them because they didn't remember. Like, listen, why don't you just give it either a checklist? We thrive on checklists. Like I love my checklist. Boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and they're beautiful, and it does two things. It hits the dopamine, and I can look at things and get done. But like chunk it down. Give them one instruction, check on the instruction, give them the next one. Like, and you'd be surprised at how many parents did not know any of those. And those were like the basics, right?
Yeah.
Now, in all response, okay, I'm in school, I do this every day. You're at home with them, you're just trying to survive. Like, totally get it. So no shade. No shade there. We totally get it. Totally want to give you compassion, empathy. For a while, I didn't know I was or I am. I deal with it, ADHD, but I also have children with ADHD, so I get it. The number one thing, I don't like to say what we're doing wrong versus what we're doing right. I think those terms can sometimes be um, what it is. I think they don't offer the meanings of it because we like to use it as a shame thing or a non-shame thing, and this is not about
Mm.
shame. But I do think the number one thing that we miss it as parents is we're not informed enough. And
Mm.
it's not a thing to say, well, I just didn't know. That's not an excuse when your kid's life is in your hands and their future is right in your hands and the shaping of that. I didn't know should never be an excuse. And the
Yeah.
number one thing I think we miss, and it's not, again, it's not a right or wrong thing. You don't know what you don't know, right? Is that we're just uninformed. If your child has ADHD, ADD, or complex ADHD, or any form of that, or whatever they have, go read. Like, go to Chat GPT and say, what do you do for ADHD? And it'll tell you, like, we have so much technology now. Study, research, and become an expert in the condition that your child is dealing with. Because when you go into these IEP meetings, you should already, or, the doctor's office or life, or you should already have an understanding of the ramifications of what they deal with. Like you should. Like there's no reason
Yeah.
to. Like we get in there and we can quote 17 episodes of a show that we watch, but we can't quote anything that's wrong with our children and how to fix it. Like that, I think that's the biggest travesty.
Looking for some new toys and tools that your ADHD kiddos will love? Play Therapy Supply has you covered with a great selection of toys, games, and fidgets that can be used by ADHD children, their parents, caregivers, and professionals alike. From fidget toys that help children calm down, de-stress, and focus, to social emotional learning resources to help kids understand their feelings and emotions, to games and activities designed to improve emotional regulation. Play Therapy Supply has it all. For thousands of items and fast and free shipping, visit playtherapysupply.com today. Jim, you are speaking my language because in the four steps that I talked about, the first one is getting the right diagnosis. So we go over the questions to ask the pediatrician and making sure we're dealing with not only what type of ADHD, but anything else that might be in there. But the second thing is understanding what ADHD is, what it is and what it isn't. So I love that you said that. I love, love, love that. But I can't skip over the fact that you said that IEPs are not what we hope they would be. I need to know what you mean by that and what we could be doing to help with that or what we should be doing differently.
Yeah, so like as somebody who wrote probably hundreds of these things, there are three things. Three things seems to be the thing that I always think in threes. I don't know why, but there are a few things that I would say with this. Number one, the parent was oftentimes uninformed, so they had no idea what to ask for to help with their children. So when you go into these IEP meetings, you need to pray that you have a good person, who knows what they're doing and understands the condition. Otherwise, you're getting somebody who's just copying and pasting from a different IEP. You're
Yeah,
not getting somebody who's actually going to look at your child and say these are the things they really need versus what everybody gets. Because if you're uninformed, you are literally putting the entirety of everything on the person writing it to do this for your child. And here's the problem. A lot of these guys, as good and compassionate they are, have no idea what they're doing. And I've worked with a lot of them. Now I've worked with some really good ones that would like just blow you away at how amazing they are. And I've worked with some people that are just a warm body in a cold position because the school needed them.
yeah,
And so you've got to understand there's a roulette thing every year that you may get one of both. And you can tell the difference between a really good one and a not so good one. And
yeah,
so you've got to be informed and say, hey, listen, these are the things that I think the kid needs. Number two, I think you have to understand is that There are some accommodations in the school system they can't do because there's not enough people to do them. You have one teacher who has maybe 60, 70, or 20 to 30 kids that have an IEP expected to do all this while teaching the 100, now this high school level, the other 150 kids that they're responsible for. There's not enough people. So we
Yeah.
do have to have some compassion, some understanding. So there is going to have to be an uptick of what you do at home to help prepare for that. But again, your kid's going to go out into the world where there's thousands of people and nobody's going to hold their hand. So they do have to learn some of that. And I think the final thing is like when we talk about the IEPs, um, there's a very big cookie cutter approach. It's like if you have ADHD, everybody gets more time. Well, and like the IEPs, every ADHD kid that I wrote an IEP for it was like more time, chunking, gets to take breaks. It's like the same thing for every single child. And I think there's some challenges because not every child who has ADHD needs extra breaks or extra
Yeah.
time. Like I was a gifted ADHD kid. I got my work done with high levels of completeness and rightness in 10 minutes. What do you do with me?
Mm.
I don't need another hour to do work that I finished in 10 minutes. Now you've got 2 hours to deal with me. And I'm done in 10 minutes. And you're like, well, check your answers. I checked it 3 times. And you check them for
Yeah.
me and you realize that I'm not wrong. And you're like, oh God, now I've got 2 extra hours. So it's really understanding, what your child needs and being the advocate. So this is a bifold thing. It's number one, you have to be your child's biggest advocate for school, in school or in life, because they're not going to step up often. So you've got to do that for them at times. However, you also have to teach them to advocate for themselves because eventually
Yeah.
you're not going to be there. One of the things we teach our kids, and they've heard it since they were, I don't know, gosh, 1 years old, like really, really littles, like really little. And I always tell them and they can quote it if they came on the show, if ever they can quote it. I want to raise my children to not need me. If I
Mm.
was to die today, my kids could cook, they can clean, they can get a job. They've both started their own businesses, things like that. Like they have done things because I'm trying to remove myself from the need of me. Because I'm not trying to make
Yeah.
codependent kids, I'm raising leaders. And they have ADHD, but one of the biggest things I tell them and I've pushed them is go talk to these people yourself. Go to the teachers, ask for them. She's 13 now. She actually would carry around her IEP, what is it, the accommodation sheet. She would carry that around with her and say and look at it and make sure she was getting what she needed. Like she used to do that. Now we got to get back to that. She's since flittered off around past that. But she was like 10, 11 years old with it in her backpack, making sure like she's looking at her thing. It's stuff like that's going to be the biggest life lesson that they get to take with them because they need to learn to do that for themselves. You can't be the hovercraft parent that are going to do it for them all their lives. There has to be a taking off. Listen, they have ADHD, they're not broken and they're not fragile. And so let's raise beautiful, wonderful, creative adults and not just codependent adults.
Mm. You're speaking directly to me. I had one small proud mommy moment in there because my son's fourth grade teacher told me that he's been advocating for himself, saying, like, could I move over here where it's quiet to get this assignment done, which is fantastic. But I should also be doing a better job of teaching him. Meditation has helped me become centered, calm, all those things, but there's like still that mama bear aspect. And it really only comes out in these 504 meetings.
Yeah.
But I need to teach him that skill. I need to give him those advocating skills. So
Yeah.
I'm going to work on
Yeah,
that.
because remember when he turned 16, you're no longer have to be invited to the meeting.
Mm.
That's the one thing they ask the children, like when we're in high school, like when they get to be 16 and 17, do you want your parents to be part of this meeting? We ask the children that. Like, well, they're young adults at that point, but we ask them. Now, 99% of the time they're like, yeah, let's bring mom, but there's ever that one kid that's like, no, I'm gonna do it myself. So just a side
Yeah.
note, this is why we teach the kids the advocacy because there are some of them that want that hyper independence. that once
Yeah.
they get asked, "Do you want your parents here?" They're gonna like, "No."
So far, mine is on track to be that 1%.
Sweet, sweet. That's what you want.
So, yeah, I know, I know.
I know.
So, one thing, and then we'll move into your coaching.
Hmm.
So, you said that IEPs are not all that they are meant, what we would hope they would be.
Right.
And I've interviewed a few special education coaches, and they told me that I think she said that only like a few of the clients she'd ever worked with really needed a 504, that all should be pushed for an IEP. Do you agree with that?
No, so I don't totally agree with that. Like, and here's why. Both 504 and IEPs are protected under the law. There are different levels of law that go with it, and of course, there are different levels of, things that you get with each of them, right? But I'm gonna be honest with you, like, quite frankly, the same thing they write on an IEP for an ADHD kid is the exact same thing they write on a 504. And both have the teeth legally that says if you're not accommodating my child, you can lose your license. Both do. And they want the golden standard of having an IEP, and I think there's a lot of people that push to that because if you have an IEP, you're more likely to be put on disability. We saw that a lot. Um, I don't think that in most schools, not only in the schools that I've worked with or worked in, um, they treated them both the same because there's not a difference. There really isn't. They give an IEP based on the academic level or the challenge level, which means if your ADHD is so intense, then you may get an IEP, which will give you a little bit different, a little bit more protections or a little bit more things and options to go into. Like if you need to be put in a special classroom, you get put in there with an IEP, not with a 504. But quite frankly, most ADHD kids don't need an IEP. Matter of fact, there's not even a place on the IEP for ADHD. That the when I was writing, unless they changed it in the last 2 years, when I was writing these, if you were on an IEP from ADHD, there was two things that would happen. Number one, you were on there because academically you could not survive. Like, but if you're an ADHD who gets good grades, you're not going to get an IEP. It's just not going to happen. But the other part of that is for ADHD or ADD or whatever, they check the box that says other health impaired. So it's like there's not even a place that says ADHD on it. Like you can get like there's all the other things, cognitive
Yeah.
disabilities, physical disabilities, but there's no ADHD on there. You got to ask yourself, why is that? Because most people with ADHD are not cognitively disabled enough to be on the IEP level, but so they grandfathered it in under other health impaired. And that's what you see when you have an ADHD child on an IEP is other health impaired. And then you have to dig deeper to even find out what that means because it's not even explicit on
Yeah.
there. So you got to look deeper into it. So like my both of my children were on 504s. They've had everything they needed, access they needed. Um, they both bring home great grades. If my little one is the bigger challenge with her grades, but just because she doesn't want to do them, she's the child that will not do anything all school year and then pull a five on an FSA. Like
Yeah.
on a state testing. Like that's her.
Yeah.
That was me too, so I get it. But like her grades are fine, and but they give her the accommodations under the 504. So I don't think everybody needs an IEP because both 504 and IEPs both travel to college with you. And then after that, like listen guys, life doesn't give you an IEP.
Yeah.
After you graduate college, like you're not going to go to a job and say, "I have an IEP." They're going to look at you and like, "I don't care." You know?
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah.
that challenges as well.
I think one of my biggest fears right now is my son is in an amazing school
Hmm.
and he has one final year of elementary school. And I think honestly, my biggest fear for him academically is that his principal leaves during that last year before I get him to middle school. I'm like, please stay.
Please, please.
She has pulled her 30 years, and when we laughed about it a couple of times, but she's not definitively said, yes, I'll stay.
Yeah.
I'm not planning on leaving. And I'm like, oh, you're
No.
making me so
Um,
nervous.
one thing I tell people is before you graduate, that fifth grade, what is your elementary go fifth grade? Because sometimes they go to six. Okay,
Yeah,
fifth.
yeah.
Have that really good person who writes the IEPs write a stellar IEP that the middle school has to amend if it's too much for them, because this way it's better to have it on it to be taken off instead of never have it on it. So just as a tip. So because
Mm,
you'll get a lot of these great elementary school IEP writers and you can say, hey, listen, let's give them everything that we can that's going to be feasible. Like, don't go crazy and be like, he gets 3 hour break.
yeah,
Like, no, nobody's going to do that. But like,
yeah.
but get it written and have them write it for the middle school so that when they start, it's already there because they got a year from the writing to do something about it. So it's better to take it off or amend it as opposed it is to really fight to put it on.
Noted. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So I have to ask, is all of the years you spent in the school what led you to coaching, or was it your own self-development, or everything?
It was my own self-development. The school system was a supplement to some things. So when I was, I don't even know what age I was. I ended up I was in college. I was going to be a music education degree, teacher and a performer. Ended up going through a lot. I had been through a lot in my life. And so I jetted out of college, joined the military. While I was in the military, I did a lot of different things with like leadership development. I had done some of that in college too. Got out of the military, ended up in a school where it was in the middle of Georgia, Emmanuel College, and I ended up in giving my life to Jesus. I had not been a Christian before that. I was 25, 26, gave my life to Jesus, and then I ended up working at a church, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm working with people, and I love people. Let me figure out what to do with this. So I got my undergraduate degree in Christian ministries, got my postgraduate degree in like leadership, and during that time, I ended up joining the John Maxwell team because I was a youth pastor and I was a pastor at the time. I went up into being a pastor, and 99.9% of the job of a pastor is coaching. That's really what it comes
Mm.
down to. So, and I found that I enjoyed working that. I love people, love in navigating the conversations. It's why I got into behavioral specialist because I got into the disc personality stuff because it all deals with behavior and communication. So you just kind of fast forward, and I won't tell this story too long. It ended up like got my degree, got my certifications. I'm certified in disc, certified in leadership, and it was that whole time during that like I started coaching, and then I started outside once I left the church in 2017. I stepped down from pastoring. I didn't step down from Jesus. I didn't. So for your listeners, I'm still a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
But like I was
There's some pearl clutching going on.
Yeah, I know that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. My wife is from Georgia too, so she's like, I'm from Philly, she's from Georgia, so I get the pearl clutch and things. So
Yeah.
like so I we 2017 we stepped down from pastoring so I can come over here to Orlando for my wife's mental health, get some really good doctors. And I was like, well, I have to make money. So I started getting into coaching. I've been a speaker for about 20 years already. I started coaching more. I'm also a writer, so I'm writing, I'm coaching, and I'm speaking. And so I'm living like, what is the Southern term? I'm living high on the hog. Is that what it is? So like
Yes.
I'm so I found out how much I really love it, and then eventually I started a podcast. I love podcasting. Again, it's an outlet for talking, and nobody can tell
Yeah.
me to shut up. They can just turn me off. Like I like, and so so yeah, so all of that during the time I was pastoring, I was working in the school system as a supplement to making money because I didn't make money as a pastor. We just were growing a church. But all of that kind of like made this beautiful little mess of what we call gym. And I drew from like the military, from the pastoring, from the school system. I spent a year or two working as a career specialist for Workforce Solutions of Florida. Like I was helping at-risk kids, write resumes and stuff. So like just this big thing started coming down and just creating this. you know what? Yeah, I'm a writer, speaker, coach. It sounds like that's, what everybody is, but mine wasn't because I woke up one day and wanted to feel self-important. It's just what my gifts are.
Yeah. I love that. I am going to mess the saying up, but there's something like everything that you've been through is leading you to where you're going. And it seems like every little bit of your story has led you right where you need to
Oh, I
be.
love that. Yeah, it's a good quote.
So you've said it a couple of times, and I'm sorry that I'm not more knowledgeable. You're saying disc?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Don't be apologetic. It's so so DISC is a personality assessment. So you probably are more familiar with Myers-Briggs, you're probably more familiar with Enneagram. For all you personality aficionados out there, I am a type 7 on, Enneagram. I'm an ENFP on Myers-Briggs, and I'm an
Hmm.
IS on DISC. DISC really, so I'm the quick and dirty breakdown of it. Enneagram deals with like what motivates you. Myers-Briggs deals with like personality theory. So this is where you're going to get to be, are you extrovert, introvert, intuitive, not intuitive, things like that. So that's more in the theory. DISC specializes in behavior and communication styles, like the patterns of it.
Mm.
So, so I was like, well, I love behavior. I love patterns and I love communicating. So let me go do disc. And I found that with disc, as a pastor, we used it to restore marriages. Like people were on the verge of divorce, marriages were renewed because of it, because they understood who each other was. I've used it in my
Oh,
coaching business. Like I teach sales from time to time. And so like, how do you sell to the different personality types, things like that. Um, you know, communication, like even that, like I shift my communication style when I know the person I'm talking to. So if somebody is more high detailed, I get more detailed. If somebody is more blunt, I get, very short and blunt. It's called mirroring. And so I chose DISC, DISC, which is dominant, influencing, steady, and conscientious. Those are the four. And for your audience, I do have a free gift on my thing that actually is a disc guide that I wrote that you can look all the way through. It's several pages.
very cool.
So you just go ahead, it's free. And what it is it'll give you the whole dynamic of what it is, the personality types is there. I do offer a paid service post that if you want it. We can talk about that in a minute if you want. But that's why I chose it because it's behavior and it's communication. And the
Mm.
differences is why I like to focus on it is because within a few minutes, I can basically tell what personality type you are. Whereas an Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, it's hard. Like it may take me several minutes, not minutes, several days to figure you out. Where in like did a minute or two.
Mm. I can hear the John Maxwell coming through on the communication part. Two things are coming to me. One, I think he's the one that said it. Communication is the key to success in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that you said was, selling to people, you have to be familiar with who they are.
Yeah.
And I've recently heard over and over and over, like, no matter what we do, we're selling. We're selling
Yep.
ourselves, to clients, or we're selling our product if we're in a product service base. But it was like, so I can hear John Maxwell coming through you.
I'm channeling my inner John. We're doing it, man. So yeah, you're always selling. And selling doesn't always mean there's an exchange of money. Like if you're in a business, obviously we want to
Right.
exchange money, but we're always selling. And we, in the non-entrepreneurial world, you call that influencing. And wouldn't it be amazing if you can influence your spouse, your child based on their personality, not based on yours?
Mm, yes. Doesn't take me long to think
Yeah.
about that.
So.
Yes. So you mentioned the freebie.
Mhm.
You want to tell them about the website and then tell them about the follow-up part of the offer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you go to www.leadwithjim.com, right? So leadwithjim.com, you'll be taken to the page. It's just a simple link page. There's a freebie. You'll see it. They're all free on there. You can link to my podcast, but then there's on there it says Disc Field Guide. You can have all three if you want, take all three, but that's the one we're specifically focusing on here. Go ahead and click that, put your email in, you'll get it right in within a few minutes. And again, take a look at it, reply to the email, ask questions. I'm happy to do that. You can also book a call with me. The call is a 15-minute call to see if it's something you want. I do offer the follow-up. Like if you say, "Oh, I would love to know my personality type and what that means," I do like a 1 hour coaching with a professional disc assessment. The disc assessment that you get is number one, it takes 15 minutes to do, so it's not a lot of time commitment. But you get this, and it gives you 30 pages of who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses. It gives you how you should be talking to people, how people should be talking to you, expectations, and it gives you like a whole lot of growth plan for you. Like it'll actually develop a growth plan within the 30 pages. You get highly professional, and then you get what separates John Maxwell's this thing that we give is it actually gives you like your leadership strengths in there. So
Mm.
you get a numbered leadership strength. And then with that, if you do take the coaching with that, it'll come with the professional disc and an hour with me as I digress and talk you through everything, what that means, how it works, the whole 9 yards. Because I don't want to ever leave you as, oh, this is cool. Now what do I do with it? And that's why every time I offer the disc assessment, you have the option to have the 1 hour call with me. Now, if you just want the disc assessment and stuff, we can talk about that on the 15-minute free call. But I do offer those as together. And then there's an option if you want more coaching after that, but that comes after that hour coaching, and I don't even get into that until we see where you're at, what you want, and even if I'm a fit. Like if I'm not a fit, I'm not. You don't hire me if I'm not a fit.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are many ADHD parents out there listening that are like, yes, I would love to know how to communicate better with my kiddo. So I'm wondering, is that what your podcast is on and where can they find that?
You can also go to leadwithjim.com because there is a link that says podcast and it'll take you to all the things. So whatever podcast you listen to, whether it be Apple, Spotify, iRadio, boom, it is there all for you. I like easy. And so like I like
Yeah.
quick. So it goes there, podcast is there. My podcast is really focused on the entrepreneur space. So the podcast is called Grace in the Grind, and it is an interview show where I'm interviewing some very successful people. But here's the deal. It's not so much an interview about tell me three business steps. Like I don't focus on that. I don't want to focus on that. What my podcast does is says, how did you not quit? How did you avoid
Mm,
burnout? Like in when you were trying to build the life of impact that you want, how did you navigate this? Like we get into the what and in the intro we said we're telling the story behind the story. Like I want to know those things, and I've had some pretty amazing conversations, and it's all been let's talk about some really hard-hitting stories. So,
yeah. I love that. I currently probably need to listen to all of that because podcasting is not, it's very new to me. It's not easy for me. So I need that motivation. So I can definitely look that up. Thank you for
you're
that.
welcome.
And for all the listeners, that will definitely be in the show notes. So I guess I need to wind it up because I could do this literally all day. This part of the podcasting is not hard. I could do this all the time, but I want to be respectful of your time. So if you could leave the listeners with just one thing that could make today easier as an ADHD parent or just anything from your coaching, I would love to hear it.
So I would say focus on the one thing. So, and what I mean by that is we want to have this list of 17 things in our brain. We want to make sure, I'm at the point some days where my to-do list has to-do list has to-do list. So they all have babies. But look at your list and say, what is the one thing I can do that makes the greatest impact for today? And do it. And when you're done, you get two choices. You can go to the next thing if you want, or you can actually just sit back and take a second and celebrate, realizing you just made the most successful thing that you could do today because it had the biggest impact. And so, like, if we can continue to do that, how much further or faster could we move in our business, in our life, in our churches, with our children, if we say, this is the biggest impact I need to make or the biggest thing I need to do, but I'm going to focus only on it, and everything else doesn't exist. You got to have those ADHD blinders on. This all doesn't exist until this is done.
That was so good and directly for me. How did you know I have a list upstairs with like probably 17 things on it?
Because we're good at what we do. So,
Jim, thank you so much for your time. This was so wonderful.
yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation, and you're a great host, and I appreciate you. and look forward to seeing what else comes out of the show.
Thank you. Phew. If you weren't already chugging coffee at the start of this episode, I bet you are now. Jim just gave us a masterclass in thriving through ADHD chaos at home, in leadership, and everywhere in between. Because let's face it, whether you're managing a team or managing tiny humans who seem to be allergic to following directions, girl, the struggle is real. But if there's one thing we're taking away today, it's this: ADHD isn't something to fix or survive. It's something to understand and work with. And if Jim's house, full of neurodivergent brilliance, can do it without spontaneously combusting, then so can we. So, to all my ADHD parents out there, take a deep breath, embrace the chaos, and maybe finally drink the coffee while it's hot. And if you need a little inspiration while you sip, you can find all of Jim's links in the show notes. Because this man knows the ADHD life and has the strategies to prove it. Until next time, stay caffeinated, stay sane, or close enough, and I'll see you in the next episode.